Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, joined as always by Mike Tagliere. How's it going, Tags?
It's going good. It's going very good.
Tags and I are on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. And our guest today is Rich Dotson. He's from DynastyNerds.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at DynastyRich. Rich, thanks for taking the time to come on our show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. Glad to be on here.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, absolutely. And here's what we've got planned for today. Okay, we're going to be talking about values in dynasty drafts. So bargains that we're looking for. We're going to go through each position. We've all got a few players lined up to talk about. We're really going to get into Rich's players a little bit more because you don't want to hear the same players over and over again from Tags and I. But we are going to talk about some of our favorites as well. Before we do that, though, I've got a game for you all, okay? We're going to play Who Am I? You guys ready for this?
Who am I? Let's do it.
All right. I'm a quarterback who has at least 28 touchdowns in each of their last 3 years. If you have the answer, you can jump right in. In that time, I have more fantasy points than Aaron Rodgers and Phillip Rivers, and more fantasy points per game than Carson Wentz and Jameis Winston.
Matt Ryan.
All four are being taken ahead of me. I'm actually the 20th quarterback off the board, even though I finished as a QB1 every year of my career.
Every year of his career.
Oh, every year of his career.
This clue will do it. After my team finally traded for a quality wide receiver, I was a top 5.
Dak.
It's Dak. Dak Prescott. Can you guys believe that? I mean, the reason I like to do these questions is because it's like, oh, wow, I had no idea this guy was that good, and I just want to tell everyone about it, you know?
Yeah, I remember standing up for Dak a few times. His sophomore season wasn't great, but he was streamable most of the time. And, you know, when they did get Amari, they threw a little bit more. Gallup's there. He's going to be going into year 2. So, yeah, Dak is a little bit underrated. I wonder what the ceiling is. And I'm sure, you know, that Rich would agree on this one. Like, the ceiling, when you have Ezekiel Elliott back there, they want to be a run-first team. Do you understand why his ADP is down there at 20?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. You're always looking for that guy that can help you win the championship. You're always trying to win. I mean, it's the whole goal. And Dak, to me, seems like, yeah, he's slightly a better than above average kind of quarterback, but is he the guy that you really want at the helm of your team to really take you over the edge? I mean, the statistics that you just gave says, yeah, for sure, he's better than Aaron Rodgers over the last couple of years. But to me, Dak's slightly above average in my eyes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, the reason that he's been better than Rodgers is because Rodgers hasn't been healthy. Dak Prescott's never missed a game. QB6, QB11, QB10, but he did that while throwing, 300 fewer passes over those 3 years than Big Ben. 459 attempts, 490, 526. So it's trending up. Doesn't throw interceptions. He's got 18 rushing touchdowns in those 3 years, 6 each year. He's safe, but if you're playing in a 1 QB league, why not just go with a streamer instead of Dak? That's the reason I can't draft him.
Honestly, when I sit down to do projections and kind of go through everything, I'll probably advise people to draft like Dak Prescott over Phillip Rivers because Rivers is kind of like that same guy. I just think you get a little bit more upside with Dak knowing they're going to the new offense.
And because of his legs.
That's the thing people commonly, and I'm sure it's going to be a theme of this episode, even with dynasty quarterbacks, is that looking for those quarterbacks that can offer you things with their legs. But I think more so in redraft just because those guys might fade in dynasty a little bit. Whereas in redraft, you're going to get their rushing totals right now, like the guys like Lamar Jackson, the guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Dak Prescott are going to give you some of those leg things. And when they get older, you're going to lose some of that rushing, and therefore you're going to need them to step up in passing. And, guys like Phillip Rivers, while they are phenomenal and they're a top 5 quarterback in the league, they're not great fantasy options.
I think his upside, and this is a stat that I got from Evan Silva's Twitter. It's actually what caught my attention to how underrated Dak seems to be right now with an ADP, that's average draft position, of QB 20. He was a top 5 QB after they traded for Amari Cooper. And that makes me think, well, if he's got a full season of Amari Cooper, Travis Frederick's going to be healthy. Is this the year that he finally throws 600 pass attempts and breaks out?
Dallas is going to have to pay him here real soon. I mean, in Dynasty, too, you have to have some concern is when they change system. Is Jason Garrett still going to be the head coach here in, the next 36 months? And when they change schemes, they change systems, will this all translate for Dak as well? It is, yeah, but when it comes to undervalue and good value, which is what we're talking about today, you guys are all making very strong points for Dak. It is. And ADP 20 sounds right because nobody looks at Dak as one of those elite quarterbacks. And they always think of Ezekiel Elliott as being a run-first football team. That offensive line isn't as good as it was 3 years ago. And like you said, Gallup's going to take a step forward this year. They have Amari Cooper, who's one of the best route runners in the NFL. Mm-hmm. They have, they bring back Jason Witten this year as well to be a safety net for Dak Prescott. He probably is really undervalued going into 2019.
So let me ask you this. If Ezekiel Elliott was to go down with some kind of injury, would Dak's stock suddenly shoot through the roof for you? Or is it just kind of, well, he's Dak Prescott. Now he'd be forced to do all this stuff and he's not really that quarterback. What do you think, Tags?
I'd say his value would definitely rise for me. I mean, I don't want to lean on one of the rookie running backs behind him on the depth chart. Not to say that they're not going to perform, like an RB2 level, maybe even a low end RB1, but they're not going to give you Zeke levels of performance. You're not going to give his touchdowns. The wide receiver stock would go up. I would say Dak would go up because he'd probably even get more goal line carries. So yeah, I'd say it would go up. I mean, the efficiency might not be as good as when Zeke's in the offense, but the volume would go up and it would more than make up for that.
For 2 QB leagues, I love Dak Prescott. I want him everywhere. 1 QB league, not interested in drafting him whatsoever. With Tags, I would rather have Mitch Trubisky or somebody with that kind of upside. Now, I want to go a different route here, okay? Totally different player we haven't talked about whatsoever, but we've seen what Sean McVay did for Jared Goff. Goff went from just being dreadful under Jeff Fisher, right, to all of a sudden, hey, is this guy a Pro Bowler? Like, he took them to the Super Bowl, and now he's got Blake Bortles, who was a top 5 QB, and then the following year, he was a top 10 QB, and then he was the top 12 QB. 3 straight years, and now he's under McVay. If anything was to happen to Goff, would you want to own Bortles in fantasy football?
I'll let you take this one, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, for like a one, you just mentioned before when it comes to streamlining, why wouldn't you want to own Bortles? Like he's a complete opposite. We were talking about Phillip Rivers, where he was a bad NFL quarterback, but he was a pretty solid fantasy football quarterback. And with all those weapons around him in Sean McVay's offense, and those are 3 quality receivers with 2 young tight ends, Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee, Todd Gurley in the backfield. Yeah, I would love to stream Blake Bortles. I mean, he'd be free everywhere across the board. He wouldn't be, a high quality quarterback for that temporary situation. He'd be a quality starter. I mean, he showed it last year. I mean, in Jacksonville, he was putting up some okay starts fantasy wise with no weapons whatsoever.
Everyone's talking about, I would draft Josh Allen. He was pretty good at the end of the last season. Blake Bortles is like a better version of Josh Allen. Well, I don't know. They're both really bad. But imagine if Josh Allen was to go to Sean McVay's offense. Like, yeah, give him to me. Top 12 quarterback for sure.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, Josh Allen, that's somebody that you have to look at as somewhat of a value. I mean, is he a great quarterback? No, but I mean, if you're talking about over the last 5 weeks of the fantasy football season last year, he was a number 1 overall fantasy player, not the number 1 quarterback.
Same exact thing we said about Bortles in 2018.
Yeah, but Allen rushes better. I mean, Allen's kind of like, somewhat in that Cam Newton category with his rushing ability. And Cam Newton consistently up to these injuries started really catching up to was a top 5 quarterback year in, year out from a fantasy perspective, because when it got into the red zone, they could rely on him rushing the football. We don't even know who the starter running back is going to be in Buffalo right now. They have 4 running backs, all a question mark. They signed TJ Yeldon. They have 2 really old guys there. They're practically fossils. They're bringing Devin Singletary, the rookie. So Josh Allen should still be asked to do what he did last year as well, plus to have a better receiving core. I think Josh Allen, again, it's not somebody you love as maybe as an NFL quarterback. From a fantasy perspective, this guy's another really, really good value just because of his legs.
Tags, who do you think the starter is in Buffalo?
It's probably going to be Frank Gore. I mean, the guy just never dies.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he just never dies. And I think it's going to be a horrid timeshare, though. I don't think it's anything that you want to be a part of. I mean, you could take your stab in Dynasty, but yeah, no. I don't want anything.
Yeah, everyone's excited about drafting Miles Sanders. I think that's going to be a horrid timeshare as well. I'm staying away from him, even though I love Miles Sanders' talent. He was my favorite running back in this draft class. Guys, today's show is brought to you by PristineAuction.com. We've still got the JuJu Smith-Schuster signed helmet giveaway going on at FantasyPros.com/contest, and that's brought to you by PristineAuction.com. So make sure and check out what they have for you at PristineAuction.com. No matter who your team is, you can find something for your cave, and everything is guaranteed authentic from only the most trusted sources. There's some great values out there, and there's some really cool items too. Like, how Penn State is known as Linebacker U? I saw this full-size signed helmet by 10 of their NFL linebackers, including Sean Lee, LeVar Arrington. Lots of good names on that helmet. So if you're a big Penn State fan, oh man, you would love to have that in your office or your desk, whatever. I also saw a signed Jerry Rice. It was a mini helmet, but even just a Jerry Rice helmet in your office, $74. Guys, that's a great value. There's all kinds of values at PristineAuction.com. Again, that's PRISTINE. All right, guys, let's move on to the Dynasty bargain talk, and we're going to start at the quarterback position. And Rich, we're going to let you go first. Who's a quarterback you like as a bargain in Dynasty right now?
Well, we talked about Josh Allen a minute ago. I think he's good value for the fantasy production you're going to get. I also think somebody who slipped down in a lot of rankings right now because mostly last year is Jameis Winston. A former first overall pick. He's only 25 years old. You bring in a guy like Bruce Arians who loves to throw the football downfield. I mean, over the last 3 seasons with Bruce Arians at the helm, his quarterbacks average over 20 points per game from fantasy production. A lot of room to grow here. Mike Evans, they have 2 quality tight ends in Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, Justin Watson, Chris Godwin, and there's a lot of weapons to go around there in Tampa Bay. With a running game that's a huge question mark as well. They're going to throw the football a ton. Jameis Winston's got to clean up those interceptions, but if anybody's going to help him become a better quarterback, it's going to be Bruce Arians with that offense. I think Jameis Winston's an extreme value right now. Nobody wants to touch him. They're all worried about what's going to happen to him, but we got to remember how young he is and how hard that position is to come into to be the guy. We all knew Jameis Winston was immature coming out of college. That really didn't change his early years in the NFL, but the kid's got to grow up sometime, and he's now just turned 25, so his insurance went down a little bit here, so that should help him calm down a little bit as well. I like Jameis Winston as a great bargain when it comes to upside for quarterback in Dynasty, because right now you could sit on quarterback for a very long time and come away with a high upside 25-year-old quarterback and a great offense with good weapons around him.
Tags, you and I both love Jameis Winston. Now, who is their backup quarterback? I don't think there's any risk that he splits time. It's not like Ryan Fitzpatrick sitting back there and they can win with their backup.
No, this is the make or break year for Jameis Winston. Like they're basically giving him his audition. He's gonna play the season. I think he's gonna be fine. And the weird part about this, Rich, is I just pulled it up because I wanted to see it because I've been looking at Dynasty stuff all morning. But Jameis Winston is actually valued more in the Dynasty community than he is in redraft right now, which it's kind of crazy because the people in Dynasty are almost anticipating what's to come. Because I was just looking at this on Dynasty League Football. He's being drafted as the 12th quarterback off the board right now, which is actually precisely where I have him. I think that he can take the leap into like that top 8 territory under Arians, but I think it's crazy. So I think people are in line with us. Everybody we've had on the show talks about Jameis Winston. So it's not just like Bobby and I are regurgitating this over and over and just spewing it into your ears. Everybody likes him for good reason. He is surrounded by them. But the best part about it all is that he is going to get the volume regardless of what they have as running backs or not, because that defense is horrid. They just lost Gerald McCoy. Jason Pierre-Paul may not play this year. We don't know what's going on with him, with his injury that he suffered. So there's going to be pass attempts. He has talented pass catchers. There's so many reasons to like Jameis Winston. I anticipate that the casual drafters, like if you're in a startup dynasty format and you're drafting with a bunch of guys who draft off emotion and they play a lot of redraft, I think you're going to get Jameis Winston as a steal right around that 15th quarterback off the board. But if you're playing with some diehards, you're going to have to reach for him a little bit.
I think so as well, and I would reach for Jameis Winston. He was the guy I was going to bring up as well, and I'm glad you brought him up because it's just nice to get some confirmation from other experts in the industry. Right now, in ECR, that's Expert Consensus Rankings. And by the way, you guys can all follow this. If you go to the FantasyPros homepage and hover over NFL, you'll see 2019 rankings there. Click on that, and then you'll see Dynasty rankings on the left. You can click on that, and you can follow along with us what we're talking about for these ECR rankings. Right now, Jameis Winston is sitting there at 13. Surprisingly behind Dak Prescott, another guy that's a lot higher in Dynasty rankings. And I think it's because a lot of people who play Dynasty are also playing in Superflex leagues, and you just want those guys who are going to be starters for a while. Dak's one of them. I think Jameis is one of them.
You guys like Jameis Winston a lot. The reason I'm unwilling to move him up so far, his ADP is right next to Matt Ryan. Which one would you guys rather have?
I'll let you go first here, Rich.
Being a big believer that I am in Jameis Winston, I would take Jameis over Matt Ryan. Because once Julio leaves, can we guarantee Matt Ryan's still going to put up quality numbers? I mean, I'm not willing to bet on that.
I think quality, yeah. I just don't know if he'll be a top 3 fantasy quarterback like he has been the last 3 years.
In a Superflex, I'm taking that extra 6 years, that extra 5 years at the quarterback position and look to replace that down the road if it does not work out. Because I see Matt Ryan and Jameis Winston, for me personally going forward, as 2 similar fantasy producers.
Do you think there's a chance that Jameis Winston doesn't work out in Tampa this year, they move on, find another quarterback in the draft next year, and he's not a starter in the next few years?
Oh, I think there's 0 chance he's not a starter.
I think that he would get a job. I mean, but the question is, he would definitely walk into a worse situation in terms of pass catching cores, because I don't know if there's many better in football. But I don't think that's going to happen. But there is a possibility, and you have to build that into it. Like, if you want to take Jameis over Cam, I'm fine with that. Like, I am 100% okay with that. But over Matt Ryan, I couldn't do it just because, like, I still feel like Julio's got another good 3 years. Calvin Ridley is a player. They're going to replace Mohamed Sanu at some point. I feel like that offensive line is studly. Matt Ryan has improved as he's gotten older, so it's just like he keeps getting better. So I would take Matt Ryan over Jameis Winston, but I just wanted to ask because that's the range they're going in.
Yeah, and I'm right with you there, Tags.
Yeah, I'm a bad person to talk to because I'm a huge Jameis believer. I know he's a knucklehead when it comes to some of the decisions he makes, but from a talent perspective, again, the interceptions need to be fixed, but I'm just a really big believer in his talent and skill set.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer too, Tags. I'm right there with you, though, on Matt Ryan. I would much rather have Matt Ryan than Jameis Winston. And the reason why, well, I guess it depends on the type of league you're in. If you're in a league that's just now starting, you can't really be sure this league is going to last 10, 15 years. You try to win now. If you're in a league where the league's been going for 15 years, it seems strong, you're not having high turnover every year, I think Winston would be a lot closer, but I'd still side with Matt Ryan just because I've got him as my number 4 behind Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Andrew Luck. I've got Matt Ryan as my number 4 quarterback. And I've got Jameis Winston down at 7. I think it'll stay that way for the next few years until Julio's gone. And at that point, I think Matt Ryan's still probably top 12 quarterback.
Yeah, Atlanta's shown the willingness to invest some options. I don't think anybody expected Atlanta to pick Calvin Ridley, but they did, and I loved it. I love the pick. And Calvin, while he may not be a prototypical number 1, he's going to be a player in the league for a long time.
I just traded him in Dynasty, so I hope you're wrong. I will feel bad about that if he becomes an absolute stud. Okay, so Tags, my guy was also Jameis Winston, so we're just going to skip me. Who's your guy?
It's Mitch Trubisky. It's weird because the ECR on him is 15. I have him at 13, and the public is drafting him as the QB 19. So that's like a mad discount at quarterback. It's rare that you find a quarterback being drafted 6 spots lower than where you have him ranked. But that's where Trubisky's at. He's behind guys like Sam Darnold and Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen's going to present some upside. We've talked about that. I think Josh Allen's one of the best ball targets out there, but I don't think that he's long for the league. Like, I don't think that he's someone who has staying power as you could rely on him for the next 8 years and understand that you have a starter. And it's not to say that Trubisky is locked in like he's a can't-miss stud, but Trubisky has flashed at times as a passer. And if you can pass and move with your legs like he can, I think you have top 6 upside. Like, Cam Newton has made a living off of his legs. I'm not saying that Mitch is Cam. He's a better passer than Cam Newton, but he can get things done with his legs. He's not a little guy.
People are going to hate you for saying that, but it is not even close. Don't argue with Tags. This one's not close, guys.
Yeah, Trubisky's a better passer than Cam Newton. And I know some people have compared Trubisky to Blake Bortles. I don't see it. Like, there were some passes that Trubisky definitely missed this past year. Like, again, I see all these plays, guys, so don't tell me to go back and watch tape, because I do. But I'm telling you, Trubisky, he makes throws that you can't teach. He throws on the run. While moving to his left, he could throw across his body. There's a lot of things he does, and just knowing that upside is there. Whereas someone like Sam Darnold, for example, okay, Sam Darnold's being drafted ahead of him. Even if Darnold turns into a franchise quarterback, someone that, let's say that he turns into a Ben Roethlisberger, which is very, very, very high, or a Phillip Rivers, those are high expectations, right? That's still just I
think we're hoping he's Jimmy G, who's the QB 14 right now in Dynasty.
Yeah, that's a high-end QB2, low-end QB1, like with decent numbers. There is no guarantee Sam Darnold's ever going to be even that. So why not take the guy like Trubisky who offers you, Dak Prescott's going before Trubisky, and that's I believe those two should be in a similar area, because I have Dak Prescott around that area as well.
Do you know Dak is just 11, 12 months older than Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, but don't take guys that are boring, guys. Just don't draft guys that are boring over him, because, again, even if those guys pan out, their ceiling is nothing. Whereas Trubisky, he actually does have a top 8 ceiling.
I'd say top 5 ceiling. I really think that he has that kind of ceiling. And I think the Bears pass catchers are very underrated. You've now got Allen Robinson, 20 months removed from his surgery. I think he's going to be a lot better this year. Anthony Miller was so banged up last year. I mean, Tags, name all the injuries he had. He separated his shoulder like 5 times, right?
Yep, he dealt with an ankle injury, and then he had foot surgery that people forget before the draft, and that's why he didn't go to the combine. So Anthony Miller, for what he did his rookie year, there's still promise there with him.
So much upside.
But and they have obviously Matt Nagy calling plays. He's shown the ability to do that. So
Tariq Cohen, I like Emmanuel Hall.
Well, Emmanuel Hall, he went undrafted for apparently health reasons. They added Riley Ridley to the depth chart. But I just think instead of trying to predict which offensive player is going to go off every week, Tariq Cohen, David Montgomery, just take Trubisky, the guy distributing them the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I like that too, and he's going to be running as well. Okay, Rich, we're moving back to you. Why don't you give us one more quarterback that you think is a bargain right now?
Yeah, Mitch Trubisky was my other guy that I had down. I had Josh Allen, Jameis Winston, and Mitch Trubisky as some of my favorite quarterbacks that are really good value. Everything you just said about Trubisky with his legs, that offense, Matt Nagy's offense is going to be a really nice fantasy asset going forward. I'm a big Anthony Miller fan. I think Allen Robinson's still a quality receiver. Now he's going to be a full, like you mentioned, 20 months removed from the ACL. Trey Burton, usually that tight end does take a year to acclimate themselves to a new system. So Trey Burton's there as well with Adam Shaheen. Come out of the MAC was going to need some time. I think Mitch Trubisky is a great value. We talked about Josh Allen a little bit earlier. My comp to him is, again, he's kind of like that Cam Newton quality quarterback where he's going to get you with his rushing yards, and that's really, really good value. And I love the fact they bring in John Smokey Brown there out of Pittsburgh State to help him as well, because nobody threw the ball pretty much as deep as Josh Allen did last year. I mean, over 15 yards last season, he threw that much 28% of the time. Zay Jones is going to be a lot better. I'm a huge Zay Jones fan. And you bring in John Brown out there as well. I think it's a real nice fit for Josh Allen to open everything up for him from rushing yards. I think Josh Allen has the potential, again, not to be the best NFL quarterback, but I think he could be one of those guys that's really undervalued, that just consistently, year in and year out, finishes as a quarterback one, anywhere from 4 down to 12, year in, year out, mostly because of those red zone rushing yards and the rushing yards overall. Same thing that Cam Newton got himself locked in there over and over and over again with when it comes to fantasy production. I'm a big Josh Allen proponent.
I mean, let's not forget Tim Tebow was a QB1 in his time in the league when he was a starting quarterback. It's not because he was a great NFL quarterback. It's because rushing yards go a long way. So, yeah, you're right about Josh Allen. I agree with that. I don't know how long he'll be a starter. I've got 3 more names here, Tags. Number 1 is Drew Brees. Right now, he's the QB 19 in Dynasty. Yet he's playing the best football of his life. I know he's old. I know he's going to come crashing down eventually. But as for now, he's going to help you win a league. He's not a top 5 fantasy QB anymore, but he's so consistent. And then the other 2, this is for very deep leagues. If you're playing in one of these 2 quarterback leagues, I like Will Grier. Not so much in terms of long term, but if you're itching for a quarterback, any starting quarterback is better than somebody else in a super flex, like a running back or a wide receiver. And I think that Will Grier is going to start the year as the Carolina Panthers starting quarterback. I don't think Cam is going to be ready. We'll see. I'm worried it's going to be an Andrew Luck situation. Not that he's going to be held out the whole year or anything like that, but shoulder injuries, you don't recover from those as quickly as everyone expects. And then the other guy, he's gone pretty much forgotten. I don't know if y'all watched Big Ben last year. He was not good. His counting stats were awesome because he threw the ball 675 times. He hit the brick wall, though. His career is coming to an end. I think at the end of this year, he's going to be replaced by Mason Rudolph after he retires. And Mason Rudolph in that system with JuJu Smith-Schuster and all these other guys that they've got lined up behind him. I think the Steelers' offense is conducive to good passing statistics, and Mason Rudolph is a big-bodied passer with a big arm.
Is Big Ben's new contract guaranteed?
I don't know. I didn't see the details on it. I didn't even look into it. I was surprised, honestly, because he's talked about retirement the last 2 off seasons. I thought he was going to start pulling the Brett Favre thing where it was like every year he was going to talk about retirement. I think he's smart to sign an extension, though, when losing Antonio Brown, because I think people are going to realize that Antonio Brown's a really good receiver, and he helped prop up Roethlisberger a little bit at this point. But, by the way, before we move on from quarterbacks, I just want to give one last stat for all those haters out there that are going to come after me about Trubisky, okay?
At Mike Taglier NFL.
Here's a stat. Bobby, you're going to love this. You're going to love this, okay? Mitch Trubisky and Baker Mayfield each played 14 games last year. Mitch Trubisky played, obviously, with an elite defense, all right? He threw the ball 52 times less than Baker Mayfield did. Again, they played the same amount of games. Mitch Trubisky scored 23 more fantasy points than Baker Mayfield did in 2018 while playing with that elite defense. There was obviously learning a new offense. It's the same thing for Baker. He was a rookie. I'm not sitting here telling you Trubisky's better than Baker Mayfield. I'm not. What I am telling you is that Baker Mayfield's current ADP is QB2 at 51 overall, where Trubisky is QB19 at 170 overall. Take the discount on Trubisky, and seriously, the upside is there.
I mean, I would clearly take Baker over Mitch Trubisky, and that's not what you're saying at all. You're just saying it should not be that far away.
That gap is way too big.
We also have to look at some of the stats, though, too, for Baker, what he was doing at the end of the year. And, some of that influx to Mitch was really helped by Tariq Cohen. A lot of that was helped by Tariq Cohen. I mean, Tariq Cohen finished as a top 11 fantasy football running back last year in PPR leagues. That was a huge boost.
That's Matt Nagy, though, and that's not going away.
No, David Montgomery's going to cut into a little bit of that. Yeah, but I agree. It's definitely Nagy's offense. And Cleveland really didn't do that, which they had Duke Johnson there to utilize that. They still didn't really do it. I think the big thing boost for Baker is obviously the Odell Beckham add into it. And another year of Antonio Callaway, who I think is also really undervalued for down the road here for his talent level to be the third receiver on that team. This Baker's going to have a lot of weapons this year.
All right, Rich, let's go on over to running backs in your first year.
Yeah, so when it comes to running backs, I think right now the best value when it comes to running back is, for me personally, is Kenyon Drake. Last year finished as running back 14 overall. Nobody likes the guy. They don't remember that Miami did commit to him pretty high in NFL draft. He's still really fresh. I mean, you're talking about a guy who finished as running back 14 overall last year. He only had 7 starts. He had 6 or less carries in 8 games. He had 3 or less receptions in 8 games. So he still managed, for such to be a PPR dominant running back, to finish as running back 14 overall with very, very minimal use. He's almost like the Mike Williams for running backs here. Kenyon Drake, new offense, new head coach, coming from that New England system that loves to utilize the pass catcher running back. Chad O'Shea, new offensive coordinator there, was a receivers coach for the New England Patriots, is now in Miami too. So they got to utilize that running game. I do like Kellen Ballage there as well, but I think Kenyon Drake, when it comes to value right now, nobody wants to touch him. And I think he has a clear path to finally finish as a running back 1 this year if he can stay healthy. He catches the ball better than he runs the ball. He should be a focal point of that offense because there's not a lot of weapons out there. It's pretty much Devontae Parker. I like Kenyon Drake this year to finish as a low-end running back 1, but to still be a running back 1, and nobody wants to touch him at all. Nobody wants anything to do with Kenyon Drake, and he's really, really good value when it comes to a running back position.
I like his upside because of the potential volume uptick that he could get, and I think that's going to happen. I can't see him being an RB1 because of that offense, though, Tags.
Yeah, the scoring is going to be somewhat limited. We don't know much about how that offense is going to be run. Obviously, there's a lot of question marks there. Kenyon Drake is easily the most talented running back on that roster, and yes, I will fight someone with that. Don't tell me that Kalen Ballage is the best running back on that roster, because he's not. He's not good.
Well, most athletic, yeah, but that's not what most talented means. That's not what best football player means.
The idea is that you're finding a running back who has the potential, and I think that. So Kenyon Drake, I mean, I know he finishes, I think it was actually the number 14 running back last year, which is just crazy considering how little he was used in that offense. I don't think he has the upside to be a consistent weekly RB1, but as an RB2, absolutely. So I'm on board with this one. I do think that he's undervalued. I think there's some questions obviously surrounding him, which is going to drop his draft value a little bit, but he's the clear-cut best talent on that roster. So I am definitely not opposed to grabbing Kenyon Drake where he's currently going.
Yeah, and I think when you mention usage, I mean, he's going to be Josh Rosen's safety net. Again, his pass catching ability is what really stands out here. And we got to remember, on those teams, these bad teams, definitely when they're playing from behind, they're going to be dumping that ball off to the running back. That's why Duke Johnson finished 2 years ago as a running back 1, because he was the only really weapon they had in that Browns offense to dump off the football to. And I think that's where Kenyon Drake is going to fall into. It's just, he's going to be peppered late in games with targets as they try to move the ball downfield quickly. He's going to be the starter running back there as well, so he's also now finally going to get some rushing yards. I think the volume will be there. Even though the offense stinks and the defense won't be that great, I think he's going to be the main beneficiary of that, and I think he's the guy to own in Miami for the year.
All right, Tex, who are you going with?
All right, so mine, I'm going to go with someone that we don't talk about a lot on this show, and I don't know why we don't talk about him enough, and that's James White. James White, people continually think that they can outsmart the Patriots, and they can't do it. James White, his role has grown every single year. He's 27 years old. There's nothing to worry about with his age. He's in the prime of his career, as a matter of fact. And the Patriots just lost Rob Gronkowski. They lost Chris Hogan, Cordarrelle Patterson. So they're losing these targets, and they replaced it with a rookie wide receiver. Okay, that's fine. N'Keal Harry, that's fine. He's not going to be getting 100 targets his rookie season. It's not going to happen. It just doesn't happen with rookie wide receivers. That guy has no chemistry with Tom Brady yet. Brady doesn't even train with the team in the offseason. He does his own thing, and then he comes in when he has to. So N'Keal Harry is going to take some time, right? They replaced Rob Gronkowski with Ben Watson, who got suspended for the first 4 games. They have Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who has been a failure everywhere he's gone. But no, everyone thinks this. There's always someone, guys. Like, we can go back among the Patriots every single year and talk about the guys that everybody expects to blow up. Kenny Britt, remember Aaron Dobson, Kenbrell Tompkins. Like, these names go on and on and on and on forever. Instead, take the guy who continually produces, the guy who continually gets a bigger role in the offense. That's James White. James White does not go away. He is a thorn in your side. Tom Brady, his arm is deteriorating. He's over 40 years old. Everybody knows that. James White is the chemistry between him and James White on those dump off passes in the flats. James White knows exactly what Brady wants to do, when he wants to do it, and where he should be on the field. That guy is worth well more than where he's being drafted. He's being drafted as the 33rd running back right now, behind Tevin freaking Coleman. Give me James White all day long.
Yeah, I went in depth about James White just like 2 episodes ago on the Dynasty Nerds podcast. I can agree with you more, Tags, when it comes to value. Everybody screams for youth or a nice quality running back, and nobody wants to touch James White. And like you mentioned, he's only 27 years old. No running back has caught more footballs over the last couple of years. I think maybe Christian McCaffrey, Le'Veon Bell didn't play last year, than James White. He's consistently targeted. He had 118 targets last year with 83 receptions, finished as a high-end running back 1 last year, 712 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. They tried to utilize Sony Michel a little bit in the passing game. It just didn't work. Like you mentioned, they got rid of Chris Hogan. They get rid of Rob Gronkowski. They need to throw the ball to somebody, and Tom Brady loves to utilize guys that he knows how to use, and James White falls right in that category. There's no reason, again, that he's going to be a week in, week out starter this year. James White's completely undervalued in every aspect of fantasy football and redraft and dynasty. It's just nobody wants to touch him, but he consistently proves that he's a valuable asset.
I agree with you guys. And, I understand in Dynasty how it's a lot of fun to rebuild a team and to build long-term and to try to get that super team and everything like that. I'm more inclined to do that with wide receivers, but for running backs, you get the guys who can help you now because who knows how long Leonard Fournette or Ezekiel Elliott's even going to be healthy. Running backs have a short lifespan in fantasy football, and so I want to get the guys who are going to help me now. James White, Latavius Murray, these guys are going to be super cheap, and they're going to help you for 1, 2, maybe even 3 years. And then so what? You replace them with the next James White that everyone's overlooking. I don't know if there's going to be someone exactly like James White, but you guys know what I'm saying. There's always someone like this who's going to be ADP RB33, and he's going to produce as a top 15, 20 running back. So I do like James White, but let me ask you this, okay? I know where Tag stands, Rich, but I want your answer. James White right now is 1 spot behind Chris Carson, who was the GOAT at the end of last season. So what do you think? Would you rather have James White or Chris Carson in Dynasty? Because for me, the answer is by far Chris Carson.
I'm taking James White because you have to be worried about Rashad Penny. I mean, they invested a first-round pick in a running back on a team that likes to run first. And I know Rashad Penny was a little banged up. He came in out of shape last year. But you got to imagine they're going to give him a shot to show that they didn't make a mistake there drafting a running back in the first round. And Rashad Penny's not just a Jag either.
They never gave Matt Flynn a shot after they spent all that money on him, though, because Russell Wilson was the man, just like Chris Carson was the man last year. I don't understand if it's working, why they would go away from it.
Because Rashad Penny's he's not a bad running back either. I mean, Rashad Penny averaged a 15-plus yard run every 9.4 carries last year. That's the best rate in the NFL. I mean, he can run the ball, and it's going to be a kind of a timeshare running back situation, and we don't know about the pass catching ability. And anytime I look at a timeshare running back situation, get in a PPR league, give me the guy who's catching a lot of footballs. We just mentioned before last year that James White had 118 targets. Okay, I'm gonna take the guy catching the football and get those guaranteed football points because right now Chris Carson is a gamble because he's gonna split time most likely with Rashad Penny, and that's if they like Chris Carson. They still got to give Penny a shot. It's a position where they could definitely alternate and get a timeshare situation. So to me, I'm taking James White.
Chris Carson had twice as many receptions, by the way, as Rashad Penny last year. Tags, you're going with James White, right?
Actually, so it's closer than you'd think. I have Chris Carson 2 spots higher than James White, so it's close. And I've actually done a turnaround on Carson. And, a lot of it comes down to that fact that Pete Carroll will put the best man on the field. And it's not to say that Rashad Penny is not going to produce, because I think Penny's going to produce as well. I think there's enough room for both those guys in that offense. Mike Davis leaving. CJ Prosise is kind of done. Like, they've moved on from him. Remember CJ Prosise? Everybody thought he was the guy to own. And now it's Rashad Penny. And granted, they used a first-round pick on Penny. They kind of have to use him. You kind of screwed the franchise. They never should have taken him there. Nobody expected Rashad Penny to go there, and he did. So they're going to use him. My concern is Carson's health. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. He had surgery on his knee this offseason, so that's my concern with Carson. So if you're in a PPR format, I think James White might be the safer play. I think Carson in standard and a half PPR, I'd probably lean Carson. But it's really close. Like, those guys are in the same exact tier for me.
Yeah, they're going to use him, but they used him last year, too. I mean, if they're going to run the ball 534 times, which was what they did last year, number 3 in the NFL was all the way down at 478. They ran the ball 60 more times than the third most in the NFL. I think that there's room for Carson and Penny. I love both of them. I want both of them, but I especially want Carson.
I think there's room for both of them to produce for sure. But one player that I think that we all can agree on, and I hope that we can all agree on this, we haven't talked about it, but this guy should not be going ahead of James White or Chris Carson, and that guy is right now. That's Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is being drafted as the number 27 running back in front of Carson, in front of Drake, in front of James White. That shouldn't be happening. I have Kareem Hunt down at number 40 in my rankings. I won't take him where he's going, but can we all agree that he belongs behind those guys we've talked about?
Yeah, put Royce Freeman's name ahead of him too. I love Royce Freeman.
See, I think the thing to worry about from a dynasty aspect too, I know he's only 23 years old, but the Browns still own his rights next year as well. So it's not guaranteed that Hunt's just going to automatically come in, play really well, and then go to a new team and be the guy, because Cleveland still owns his rights next year. And Nick Chubb is just too good of a running back to heave off the field. And for me, Kareem Hunt, again, you're talking about a gamble here, and a gamble that you might even be able to actually utilize for another 2 years. And in fantasy football, especially dynasty, the running back position, that's a lifetime. And I'm not taking him higher than, like you guys said, he's down in my rankings just because of viability, usability, and that long-term projection of where he'll be and will he be the guy. Because we got to remember, too, next year, this 2020 class, we're going to get a huge influx in talent at the running back position. I mean, you could have got 10 guys that could be potential new starters on new teams next year. So then where's Kareem going to go even after that?
Tags is Leonard Fournette on your list as well. I'm looking at him right now, RB16. He's still just 24 years old, and he has been a fantasy monster every time he takes the field. People are taking him behind Kerryon Johnson, dude.
Yep, I made a deal for Fournette in our Fantasy Pros Dynasty League. Recently, I traded away the 103 pick and Geronimo Allison for Leonard Fournette. So I was all about buying.
I should have thought of it first. I'm mad.
Yeah, I'm all about buying Fournette. I've talked about him quite a bit, so I didn't want to bring him up. I wanted to talk about like James White, and another name I wanted to bring up that's on the list is Justice Hill.
Yeah, baby.
He's falling in drafts too far. That's basically what it comes down to. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be a stud right from the get-go. Ingram is there, but Justice Hill is. Imagine Reggie Bush playing alongside Lamar Jackson.
You think Justice Hill's Reggie Bush?
I think Justice Hill's that type of player. I'm not saying that he is Reggie Bush, but I'm saying that he's a guy that he's going to be in a timeshare. He is going to be using the pass game an awful lot, and he can walk in, and if you need him to, he can touch the ball 20 times per game. He's not a guy that's going to break down, as he showed at OK State. So I think Justice Hill should be drafted in front of guys like Jordan Howard, Kareem Hunt, Carlos Hyde, Austin Eckler. I'll take the ceiling of Justice Hill over those guys.
Yeah, Jordan Howard shouldn't be drafted at all. Yeah, Justice Hill is a nice quality player. I like they brought out his name. That's a good system, because look what Baltimore's even doing there. They're just trying to get really fast to protect Lamar Jackson. They bring in Miles Boykin. They bring in Marquise Brown. They have 18 tight ends on the roster. I'm a big Mark Andrews fan. So, you know, Mark Ingram's going to be that ground and pound guy, but they're going to need that speedster, that versatile weapon, that Tariq Cohen kind of fit, and that's going to be Justice Hill. I think he's going to be a really nice bargain in redraft leagues when it comes to PPR points.
I think so too. They throw the ball to running backs so much too. I'm a big fan of Justice Hill. My first guy though that I wanted to talk about is Raquel Armstead. RB 84 right now. He's the direct backup to Leonard Fournette, who we know is injury prone. It's a run heavy offense. They've got a very good offensive line now that they're finally healthy. We'll see if that lasts, but and the Fournette has problems with the front office in Jacksonville. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is his last year in Jacksonville, and if it is, maybe they don't replace him with somebody in the draft. Maybe it is Raquel Armstead. You watch him run. He is awesome.
Yeah, Raquel Armstead, his ECR is RB 84, which is kind of crazy to me. I have him at 52, so I'm definitely higher. And then his ADP is somewhere in the middle, and it's at 66 right now, behind guys like Dexter Williams, Jalen Richard, and Bryce Love. So Raquel Armstead, he is what he is. He's a handcuff. And Jacksonville has slowly built one of the better offensive lines in football. I'm going to be going through and creating an article pretty soon on that, talking about the offensive lines and, you know, what they do well and, you know, should they boost production. And Jacksonville's gone from a team that legitimately had one of a bottom 5 offensive line to one that I don't know where I'm ranking them yet, but I imagine they're probably going to be in my top 12 for what they've done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Ito Smith right now, RB 42. I'm looking at Devin Singletary, RB 46. Deontay Foreman, RB 49. I would so much rather have Armstead than any of those guys.
I'd rather have Ito Smith, just when I saw him again in PPR leagues there. See, the thing is, Leonard Fournette is just that ankle. I mean, Leonard Fournette, nobody can argue his talent. It's just that ankle has been a problem for now, 4 years straight, pretty much? So it's almost guaranteed he's going to sit a couple games. And like you mentioned before, Armstead's a nice low one-cut runner as well, power runner. Real agile, as showed by his 3-cone.
He reminds me of my boy Chris Carson.
Yeah, that's actually a really good comp. You know, like how they both can get outside really well. Really good hit movement there. So I like Armstead more. I do think he's a nice sneaky own as well, because Fournette, they're going to run the ball a ton. He's going to need spelled. He's going to mess up that ankle at some point. And then Armstead's going to be the guy. They don't have anybody else to be the guy. Armstead will be the guy there.
All right, why don't you give us one more name, Rich, and then we'll move on over to wide receivers.
So when it comes to running backs, I'm looking at PPR guys here. You know, you mentioned Ito Smith. Another guy who's really just undervalued, and everybody just expects it to be D'Onta Foreman show, is going to be Lamar Miller in Houston. They bring in Kiki Cutie's coming back again this year. He was heavily targeted the last couple games. That offense is getting better. But everybody just expects D'Onta Foreman to come in here and just be a fantastic running back. He was just okay coming out of college. Nothing fantastic. But we got to remember, he's coming off that Achilles injury. That's one of the most worst injuries possible for any running back. The odds of being a running back even coming back to play at any success, I mean, you're talking about under 25% from Achilles injuries. It could be a career ender here. And they just, with Lamar Miller's pass catching ability, again, you're talking about somebody who's on a very short window, but is still a viable option at the running back position, the starter in Houston, and that offense is going to take another big step forward this year. I think Lamar Miller's a nice quality asset for the price.
Tags, do you have any other names you wanted to get in here?
No. I mean, we talked about a lot of our guys that we do like and stuff like that. So I'm always interested to hear about the players. And I think that Lamar Miller is like a guy that if you're contending for a title, he can definitely service you as like a low end RB2. And at least he gives you stability in a lineup. And, you know, sometimes in dynasty leagues, that's pretty hard to find at running back position.
It is. That's why, I mean, my number one term I use, if you listen to my podcast for over the last 5 years, the hashtag 2 to 3 year window. I mean, that's what you get for these running backs. That's why you build your dynasty team around young receivers, because come the rookie draft, you can literally just plug and play guys. I mean, we already talked about Raquel Armstead. The 3 top tier running backs there, you could kind of plug and play this year. So to me, I'm never looking at any running back longer than 3 years on my roster to be a viable option. I'm just going to keep flipping them, keep making trades, and keep moving on. Same thing for a quality running back that's even produced. I'm going to try and get out after 3 years, get a player and a draft pick, and then just plug and play as we go along.
You know, this doesn't really match our undervalued segment, but I did want to pick your brain here. So Tags was talking about, we did our Dynasty Invitational League, where we have guys from around the industry, and we did our rookie draft. Darrell Henderson was picked 4th overall by Dalton Del Don, and I'm wondering, as stuff starts to trickle out about Todd Gurley, he's moving up these rankings lists. Where do you have him? Obviously, he's behind David Montgomery and Josh Jacobs, but is he your number 3 running back at this point?
Not even close. He's not even my first round. That's a terrible pick at 4th overall. I mean, Darrell Henderson, I didn't even really get the over love on on his tape. I mean, I think he's a quality running back, but he's somewhat one-dimensional. I know he's explosive, but they matched the offer sheet to Detroit with Malcolm Brown. You know, they're paying him $3 million for a reason. And people just expect Darrell Henderson to come in and be the guy when he goes down. It would be a timeshare back committee. Remember, people got all excited about John Kelly with the Rams.
C.J. Anderson was not in a timeshare. C.J. Anderson was getting all the work. And I think Henderson's a better version of C.J. Anderson. Now, Brown would have been the guy. They wouldn't have signed Anderson if Brown had stayed healthy. But I do like the upside of Henderson. I think he's got more upside than even David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, because of the offense he's in. I'm just not as concerned about Gurley.
Off the tape, he's not talented enough to be, to me, that guy. I think if I had to guess, again, for how deep the running back class is next year, if they had a potential to replace Todd Gurley, like, he's replaceable. When it comes, he doesn't catch the football overly well, Darrell Henderson, too, so there goes PPR value. So he's going to be more touchdown dependent as well, which lowers his value in my eyes because I'm looking for fantasy production. Usage-wise, even Todd Gurley, they want to ease his role a little bit. They're going to use Malcolm Brown a little bit. He's still going to be a kind of a timeshare running back. You're much better off. For me, when it comes to Dynasty, I'm drafting Justice Hill over Darrell Henderson 12 out of 12 times. Every time. My running backs are Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, and David Montgomery, and that's locked in as the top 3. After that, I'm taking Justice Hill in my rookie draft. I wouldn't mind gambling on a guy like Raquel Armstead. But after that, you're just waiting because I can't overemphasize enough how deep this 2020 class is going to be at running back position. Running back number 2s right now in the league will not be running back number 2s going into next year. They're going to be overtaken by this influx of talent we're going to get. This window and this dynamic of the running back position is going to change after the 2020 class. So for me, Darrell Henderson, somebody taking him at 4th overall, they're doing Dynasty way wrong right there, man. That's not the way you want to go. You don't take a handcuff at number 4 overall to protect your asset of Todd Gurley. You got to take the best player available, and Darrell Henderson is 100% not that guy at number 4.
Now, Tags, we know that you liked CJ Anderson, but we know he wasn't especially talented, and look what he did in this offense. For me, it's just Sean McVay and tying Darrell Henderson's name to Sean McVay. Did you think this was an awful pick, or is there something there maybe?
He's not a first-round pick for me either. So
okay.
I'm more in that conversation. And honestly, it's taken off, and it's not even just in Dynasty either. It's in redraft. It's in best ball. I saw Darrell Henderson.
He's going to go in the top 100 picks in redraft.
Darrell Henderson went in the best ball league that I was in the other day. I got Alshon Jeffrey after him. Like, I was like, what happened? Like, did all of a sudden Todd Gurley die and I missed it? Like, because Todd Gurley's still on the roster. I think they're managing his reps, and I think it's going to be...
I'm going to get so many shares of Todd Gurley, and I'm going to live or die with him this year.
No, there's people, like, legitimate big names in the industry now putting him outside their top 20 running backs, man. It's real.
Holy cow, dude. All right, here's what we're going to do. We were going to go wide receiver next. I want to go one tight end each, and then we're going to go spend the rest of the time at wide receiver. So, Rich, why don't you start us off at tight end?
Tight end position. I think a really good value right now that people are just completely throwing in the dumpster is Jack Doyle for the Colts. Everybody's all over Eric Ebron because he finished as a top 3 fantasy tight end last year. But they paid Jack Doyle, and when Jack Doyle was in there, even with Ebron, he produced, and he was actually the more efficient tight end on the roster. So to me, Jack Doyle in that offense that Indy's going to have right now, they have no clear-cut number 2. It's going to be Paris Campbell, but he is a rookie out there. Chester Rogers hasn't got it done. So to me, I totally see them using those 2 tight end sets. The more familiarity with Jack Doyle, the production that he does have when he's on the field. He was hurt last year, and Eric Ebron, everybody sees the Colts starting tight end as Eric Ebron. It's going to be Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron. Jack Doyle is going extremely late right now. He's a fantastic value in there with Andrew Luck.
All right, Tags, what do you think?
I mean, I'm fine with Doyle. Like, where he's going, I'm fine with that as a price. He's the tight end 23 right now in startup drafts, going behind guys like Kyle Rudolph, Ian Thomas, Mike Gesicki. So it's arguably the right area, but the upside for Jack Doyle is actually a lot better than those guys. Like, those guys are, like Rudolph is going to lose his job to Irv Smith. That's going to happen. Ian Thomas, he flashed a little bit. Mike Gesicki didn't look very good at all. Mark Andrews is in that conversation. So, I think it's close to the area he probably should be, but there's upside for Jack Doyle for sure.
I was going to say Dallas Goedert, but I always talk about Dallas Goedert and that when Zach Ertz is gone, Dallas Goedert's going to be a top 3 tight end because he's tied to the...
But Goddard's at 11 right now, so he's being valued high.
He's being valued, but I'd rather have Dallas Goedert than TJ Hawkinson, and especially Eric Ebron. I know that's a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little crazy.
But I'm a huge believer in Dallas Goedert and Dynasty. My guy that I want to talk about is Irv Smith Jr. He's down there at number 23. You watch him play, and yeah, he's not as complete as a tight end as Noah Fant or TJ Hawkinson, but in terms of pure catching, he might be the best of the group. Yeah, he's not the starter right away, but he's going to be next year, and he should not be down there at 23 behind Ian Thomas, Jordan Reed, Kyle Rudolph, who's got one washed-up year splitting touches with Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. It's Irv Smith for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's Irv Smith. I had a choice in actually 2 different drafts, and I split it. I split the difference because I couldn't decide between Irv Smith and Jay Sternberger. I needed a tight end at the back of the 2nd round in rookie drafts, 2 of them, and or the start of the 3rd, I think, isn't the one. But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with either of those guys. I'll take the upside of Jay Sternberger, I think, more than Irv Smith, just because I know who he's tied to. And I mean, like, Aaron Rodgers has not traditionally targeted tight ends very much, but they didn't add a receiver in the draft, so they obviously felt like they needed to groom a tight end behind Jimmy Graham. And Sternberger, he reminded me like a little bit of like a Greg Olsen in college, even though it was only 1 year of production.
He's a big wide receiver.
So is he your underrated guy, your dynasty value?
He's not. Mine is I was going to ask you guys, who's Washington's number 1 receiver when healthy?
Jordan Reed.
It's Jordan Reed. And yeah, he's 28 years old, so he's not a dinosaur like a Greg Olsen or anything like that. He's not going to be out of the league in 2 years. When he's healthy, he's their best receiver.
That's a good age for a fantasy tight end.
He's being drafted as the tight end 28 right now, behind Tyler Eifert, Gerald Everett, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. What is wrong? Come on, guys. Like,
his upside is 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, without looking, where was Jordan Reed last year before he got hurt?
He wasn't even that good with Alex Smith, and he was still probably a top 12 tight end.
Yeah.
It was tight end number 8 overall until he got hurt.
Yeah, people are just reaching at this point where it's like, okay, yes, he's not healthy all the time, but if Jordan Reed's hurt, don't put him in your lineup. When he's playing, he's a top 12 tight end, so I just don't understand.
Yeah, that's a good call, man.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of his as well. I mean, his value again. He's so cheap. I'm snagging him everywhere in best ball drafts. It's disgusting.
All right, let's go wide receivers, guys. Rich, who are you going with?
One of my favorite values right now in all of Dynasty Fantasy Football, and probably you can go back to redraft, is Curtis Samuel for the Panthers. Last year was essentially his rookie year. His stats are really similar to DJ Moore, and the cost of DJ Moore is 10 times the cost of a guy like Curtis Samuel. I on my podcast, I said at the end of last year, in every league you're in, go buy Curtis Samuel. You'll probably get him for a second-round pick. And I got him in so many leagues for second-round picks. And for me, I think he is just an overall better athletic wide receiver than DJ Moore. I mean, again, he was a really high draft pick. He was second round, 40th overall. They had an ankle injury, he was all beat up. But to me, I can see him. I see where DJ Moore, a lot of his passes were manufactured, more of a slot receiver, where you can actually line Curtis Samuel up outside. He's quicker. He's more athletic. He's better with the ball in his hands with yards after the catch. He's more versatile. I mean, he's kind of like in that Percy Harvin, Stephon Diggs kind of esque receiver. And right now, everybody wants DJ Moore, and for value wise, Curtis Samuel is where it's at. He's only 22 years old. He's an extremely talented offensive weapon. Their size, I mean, again, him and DJ Moore, size wise, everything they do is very comparable, even when it comes to stats. But when you actually look at production, fantasy production, DJ Moore last year, he averaged 9.8 fantasy points in PPR leagues per game, when Curtis Samuel averaged 10.5 PPR points per game. He actually outproduced DJ Moore, and DJ Moore got a big boost from all his rushing yards he got as well. He had 13 carries for 172 yards compared to Curtis Samuel's 8 carries for 84 yards. So me, I love Curtis Samuel. I've been buying him this whole entire offseason in every single league that I've been going back since starting in December. I think he's great value. I think he's going to take a big step forward this year. I love Curtis Samuel.
Tags, I like Curtis Samuel too, and you know that. I mean, I've been hyping him up for a long time. I was begging people to pick him up last year when he went on the touchdown streak and everything like that, and I thought, this is the real deal. You watch him play, and he's a good football player. My issue with him is I'm not sure we can trust him week to week. It's kind of like Josh Allen. You put him in your lineup, and yeah, eventually over 16 games, he's going to pile up the points. I really think that's going to happen with Curtis Samuel, but 40% of the time, he's going to be a dud. And the rest of the time, he's going to be okay, and then he's going to have a couple explosive games.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, his ADP reflects that, though. Like, so you're getting him as a value. And so that's why, like, I think it was a great point here, Rich, in that I posted a tweet, this is back on May 15th, that it took an average of 14.9 PPR points to finish as a wide receiver 2 in 2018. DJ Moore hit that mark 3 times in 16 games, okay? Curtis Samuel only played 12 games and hit that mark 4 times. Samuel has a dynasty ADP of wide receiver 53, Moore wide receiver 17. I am not saying that Moore is not the better asset to own on your team. I think he is. But I think that gap is way, way, way too big, where Samuel is like that guy that you don't want him as a consistent every week starter, but if you have him as your wide receiver 4 or someone that you could plug in during a bye week, that's ideal because he's going to give you upside. And I think there is potential for Moore. I'm with you on this one. I don't think that I think DJ Moore is more overvalued and Samuel is more undervalued.
And I'm even going to go as far as disagreeing there as a wide receiver 4. I think he's going to be a solid minimum wide receiver 3. I'm not going off the past tense. Again, last year it was his rookie year essentially in the NFL playing wise. And at 22, he's going to be significantly better this year. So I think he's going to take a nice big step forward this year and actually be a viable week in, week out option.
Are you guys going Deebo Samuel or Curtis Samuel?
All the above, because I love Deebo Samuel a ton too.
I
I tweeted out before the draft. I was like, my dream destination for Deebo Samuel is San Francisco, and he landed there, so I love it.
Yeah, I'm actually going Kiki QT. If I'm getting someone in that range, I want QT.
I'm QT as well. They're all in that same tier, though. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them, but I think QT would be the one I'd own.
All right, so Tags, who's your first undervalued guy?
Yeah, I love Kuti, man. Dude, Kuti averaged 10 targets per game over the last 5 games. 28% of the target share.
Yes, he did. Even with Will Fuller on the field.
Yeah, when Fuller was on the field, QT was the one getting targeted. But that's the thing is, like, I'm not trying to, like, it's such a small sample, but factoring price in with QT and guys like Will Fuller, give me QT.
Even without the price, man, give me QT. I can't believe the bargain.
I'll take Fuller over him if all was even, but it's not. So
we need to make a bet then.
Yeah, Marquise Brown is mine. he's somebody that I am so mad to. So I don't overvalue draft picks, but when I get into a rookie draft, and I've been through, I think 4 of them now this offseason, I got a couple more to go, but 4 of them, and Marquise Brown has fallen into the second round. So basically, I'm not trying to toot my horn, but most dynasty leagues that I'm in, I typically have a pick towards the end of the first round. And I've debated Brown with those picks, but if I'm getting DK Metcalf there, I'll take Metcalf over him. Some leagues, like I needed somebody else, whatever the case may be, a running back. But Marquise Brown has fallen into the 12 to 16 pick range in a lot of my drafts. And I'm trying to trade into that spot. Like I'm trying to trade with some. I'm like, they keep undervaluing him. Everybody passed him. Like, or I didn't have a first round pick. And then I'm like trying to trade into that second round. So I'm like, let me trade up and get him. He keeps falling. His startup ADP is 49 wide receiver overall, which honestly, I think he's going later than that in my drafts in terms of like what they're valuing as a rookie. Going in the middle of the second round is stupid. Marquise Brown's the best wide receiver on that team. He reminds me of DeSean Jackson. And if you're worried about Lamar Jackson, so Lamar Jackson does things well to buy time for Marquise Brown to shake a defender. Okay, Lamar Jackson doesn't have the best arm, but here's the best part about Dynasty. If Lamar Jackson really does suck with what they've given him, they're going to replace him with another quarterback. DeSean Jackson has made a living playing with some not great quarterbacks, and he was fine in fantasy. Like, he was a high-end wide receiver too most of the time, and that's who I compare Marquise Brown to. He should not be going this late. Like, next to guys like D.D. Westbrook, come on.
I think he should. Now, my partner in the podcast, he agrees with you about the Lamar Jackson take, but there's more to that with Marquise Brown, and I know he's really fast, but everybody's going to say DeSean Jackson because that's who he comps size-wise to. But we got to remember, DeSean Jackson's just an outlier, really. And what I was worried about Marquise Brown is he's got such a small catch radius that he needed an accurate quarterback. He does not get that with Lamar Jackson. He has the speed. He could be bumped off his routes way easier here. All that production came with 2 Heisman-winning quarterbacks in Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray.
And now he's with 2 other Heisman quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Robert Griffin III. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, you're right. But, I mean, you also got to remind, too, like, Marquise Brown had an 8.9% drop rate in college as well. I'm sorry. I think if I'm going to gamble on a receiver there in Baltimore, I'm going to gamble on the upside of a guy like Miles Boykin, personally. Marquise Brown's got so much risk involved when it just comes to situation, size, drop rate. That's a lot of gamble to invest in a first-round pick in your dynasty league, in my eyes. I'm not doing it. I'm not anywhere close to that in the first round. You're better off taking a guy like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I'd gamble on the upside of a guy like Hakeem Butler over Marquise Brown. Heck, I swear on this, on my son's lives, I would take Kelvin Harmon over Marquise Brown.
Yeah,
wow.
Take that.
I need to be in a dynasty draft with you then, because Kelvin Harmon, he shouldn't even go in the top 2 rounds.
I like Kelvin Harmon a lot, man. His speed might not be there, but I love the way he positions himself. I like the fit.
Yeah, when there's a 6th round pick involved, it's like, that's when you're basically relying on an injury to get opportunity. I don't think he finds his way into the field. That's the only, I don't hate Harmon. Like, I think he was fine in college. I don't think he was like special.
Have me back on right around December when Kelvin Harmon's a starter on the team.
Nice. Well, I hope you're right. I do hope you're right, because that means the talent would rise, because Josh Doxson's just not very good. But Marquise Brown, that's something that I'd like to revisit, because I think Kyler Murray is overrated as a passer, and I think that Marquise Brown made Kyler Murray look a little bit better, because he was that guy that, you know, Kyler Murray buys time and he gets open. Like, yes, he can be bumped off his routes. He's not going to be a 120, 130 target guy in an offense. I don't see that. And you're right, DeSean Jackson is an outlier. But the explosiveness I see with Marquise Brown, the Liz Frank injury worries me a little bit. But again, none of that risk, it just doesn't feel like it's built in there. At the end of the first round, top of the second round, like, do you know the wide receiver? Like, I do this study every year, and I did it on the website. You guys could check it out. Is what is a dynasty draft pick actually worth? And a top of the second round pick, do you know what the career arc is in terms of like consistency that you'll get out of that receiver? It's Danny Amendola. So are you like, so trading, you know, that second round pick is usually worth it. To me, Marquise Brown's upside is much more tremendous than that, where it's like at the end of the first round, that's where I think he belongs, where it's like, yes, there's some risk involved, but
yeah, but you'll be able to get him for so much cheaper 3 years from now. Like, cause
a lot of receivers are like that.
Again, he's going to take time to get ready. He's not going to produce early in his career, I don't think. You know, again, the Lamar Jackson question mark. I think in 2 years, and what have you done for me lately in draft picks? I mean, you're going to be able to trade away. You'll be able to acquire Marquise Brown for cheaper than he's going in this rookie draft.
A lot of receivers are kind of like that, where it's like, you know, that's why I think in rookie drafts, I think a lot of people have gravitated towards taking running backs early because they realize wide receivers the following year, they tend to lose value. Like people always overvalue draft picks and then they end up trading for a lot less. Wide receivers tend to lose value. And Marquise Brown, the Liz Frank injury, I am a little worried about that, like having that this calendar year, because typically that does affect the player that year. And Lamar Jackson, I'm not a big fan of him as a passer. So, and that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that I'm high on Marquise Brown, even with Lamar Jackson as his quarterback, just it kind of says a lot about how I feel about Brown as a talent.
All right, guys, I've got 4 names here. My first one is Marquez Valdez-Scantling, again, because I want to be tied to Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to be the guy who steps up as the number 2 in Green Bay. Second is Jalen Hurd. Tags and I've talked about him a ton, so we're not going to get into it. Obviously, David Moore is in this list because he's my dude. The one I really want to highlight, though, is Dante Pettis. Right now, he's sitting there at wide receiver 34. He's in Shanahan's offense, and I think he's going to be the primary receiver there for Jimmy G, who, when he just was learning the playbook in San Francisco, was on pace, prorated 5,000-yard season. He's going to be healthy this season, at least we'll see. And if he is, he's going to have to pile up those yards somewhere. I think Pettis is going to be their number 1, so I want a lot of shares of Pettis, especially in Dynasty.
Where do you have Pettis in your rankings at wide receivers?
27.
Ooh, yeah, you're higher than me. I
think Deebo Samuel's better.
Wow, okay.
Overall, as an overall receiver, I think Deebo Samuel's better.
Right now, I would trade the 1-1 pick for Dante Pettis if I had to. Now, I could probably trade the 1-4 for Dante Pettis, but I mean, I've got N'Keal Harry as my 1-1. I'd rather have Dante Pettis than N'Keal Harry. And I'm a N'Keal Harry guy.
Nowhere near that. No way.
Okay.
I mean, I get it. I mean, because you want that number 1 receiver in Shanahan's offense. It's just I think Deebo Samuel will be that number 1 receiver in that offense.
I think those guys are going to cap each other's upside, which is why I have Pettis at 37 and I have Samuel at 46. I feel like one of them is going to finish better than that, but I think that they're receivers, they're movable players, and I think Kittle is going to be just like that possession receiver, and that's why I don't think they drafted a big wide receiver. I like Samuel. He reminds me of like a Jarvis Landry type player. Pettis, he's a versatile player. Again, he's someone that you can move into the slot. He can play him outside. He'll be fine. I just don't think that any of them are going to blow the roof off. Like in terms of like, oh my God, they had a breakout season and you could see them being the next, like Stephon Diggs, where it's like, I don't think any of them guys are going to become
I think he's the next Pierre Garçon. You remember what Pierre Garçon did in Shanahan's offense.
But he would require a lot of targets to get there though.
Oh, and he's so much leaner than Pierre Garçon. I mean, he
is. He can't withstand those hits.
Mm-hmm.
He is not a physical receiver at all. I mean, he's so lean in his frame. He goes, and Dante Pettis goes down so easily.
Yeah, he's not.
Where Deebo Samuel's like that running back with the ball in his hands.
Yeah,
he's a bruiser. Yeah. All right, Rich, why don't you give us one more name and Tags? We'll get one more from you.
All right, so a guy at this point now, I've seen the momentum really start to build over Twitter now, but I just want to make everybody sure, like I started all this momentum. It's Mike Williams. This is somebody again who I've been preaching for so long, and I don't know where he is in the rankings for like on FantasyPros right now. I'm not looking at it, but like it's still undervalued. This guy is somebody who I love going in 2019, a number 7 overall pick in 2017. The guy scored 10 touchdowns last year on 66 targets. That is amazing. That's literally unheard of in the National Football League. He had 43 catches of those 66 targets and caught 664 yards. I know Hunter Henry's coming back, but we're talking about 2 completely different skill sets here. When Tyrell Williams leaving, that puts 65 targets available and a bigger timeshare too, because Tyrell Williams saw 76% of the snaps last year, while Williams saw 62%. He's going to move into that role. We'll probably see about, right around that 76. I can see even a bump up to the 80%. Phillip Rivers really likes him, really likes to target him. I think we're looking here, guys, at one of the next big time fantasy football receivers, where even though his price tag right now on Williams is still expensive, when you say value, I think that values, we're talking like the Devontae Adams step up here.
Yeah, I think it's a Des Bryant type of upside guy.
Yes, where he's going to become that true number one receiver that you can't even, it's so hard to even trade for in dynasty leagues, and he's available right now and you can buy him. That's where the value comes in line for me. I think Mike Williams, his skill set in that offense and what he produces, completely different than Keenan Allen. Same kind of red zone threat as Hunter Henry, but even a bigger red zone threat in the way he moves for his size and his wingspan. Mike Williams is somebody you should absolutely try to acquire for every dynasty league that you're in if he's not on your roster, because that price tag right now, where it might seem expensive now, 18 months from now, you're going to look like you stole Mike Williams.
I did not bring him up because Tags and I have talked about him so much. How is he wide receiver 27 in Dynasty? That is so stupid. I've got him in my top 15. He was top 24 last year and he barely even played. Tags, this one's too easy, right?
Yep, here's a stat for you guys on Mike Williams. He already kind of brought it up, but there have been just 16 wide receivers who have been able to finish as a top 20 fantasy receiver with less than 100 targets over the last 10 years. 16 players, less than 100 targets. Mike Williams did it with 66. Lockett.
It's almost half.
Yeah, Tyler Lockett did it with 71 targets last year as well. No other wide receivers can say they did it with less than 79 targets. Mike Williams is fantastic. He has tremendous upside. You're not even paying for it right now. We're all over this one too. So yes, you are in good company.
Yeah, and you just said Tyler Lockett, and he's below even Mike Williams. And again, you're talking about 71 targets he did at. Tyler Lockett averaged 3.13 PPR points per target last year.
It's ridiculous.
That's the best of any wide receiver with I think it's about 30 targets over the last 10 years in the NFL.
Yep.
I'm betting on him returning to 2 or 3 touchdowns like he did in 2016 and 2017. I'm not seeing 10.
No, I released an article.
Yeah, his route running's gotten so much better over these last couple of years, though.
I released an article today. It says, what's the effect of slot targets in fantasy football? And Tyler Lockett was the number 3 wide receiver in football over the last 2 years on fantasy points per target in the slot. And he's taken over that role with Doug Baldwin out. So check out that article. I highlight all that stuff and why. But yeah, so one that I want to talk about, and I talked about him last year, I'm still going to say he's an excellent buy low in startups, is John Ross. I think people don't realize what an offense can do for a player's fantasy stock. If you guys remember, you had Robert Woods on waiver wires, before Sean McVay came to town and they acquired him, and people didn't even want anything to do with Cooper Kupp. If you guys remember that, they called him the old wide receiver in the draft, and he didn't do anything athletically, and a lot of people hated on those guys. Now all of a sudden those guys,
except for the Dynasty nerds, because we had him as a late first round pick.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Mr. Moscow Mule himself.
I'm just talking about like the majority, but in general. So what I'm saying is that you go to that offense, and it's like all of a sudden, now Zach Taylor is going to the Bengals. He's starting with that playbook that the Rams use. So when you look at John Ross, who's he most comparable to in that offense? It would be like the Brandon Cooks type role in that offense. And if that's the case, John Ross can do it. John Ross can play that role. And if John Ross were to start out in Sean McVay's offense, he would have had a lot different career arc, and he wouldn't be drafted as the 82nd wide receiver in Dynasty startups right now. So I'm all about getting John Ross at a discount and taking the chance on that. Like where, take the chance on a guy in an offense that you don't know. Don't draft guys like right now going in front of him. Adam Humphries is going in front of him. Nelson Aguilar is going in front of him. Those guys are never going to amount to anything on your dynasty team other than like bench fodder that you could potentially throw in on a trade, maybe use when you're in bye week hell, whatever the case may be. Whereas John Ross could potentially become like a player that you never thought he could be, because John Ross is more than just a field stretcher.
He reminds me of, it's a different type of player, but Zay Jones stock. Right? Zay Jones was this guy that everyone was excited about, and then they didn't use him right, and he was injured a little bit. Things didn't go the right way, and now Zay Jones, look where he is. He's actually useful. Now, if he wasn't with Josh Allen, he'd be even more useful. Imagine if he was in an offense with Zach Taylor, right? I think that John Ross has that kind of upside. I like the pick. Tags. What do you think, Rich?
No thanks.
Okay. I think that's what most people are saying, and I think that's why...
to be fair, for the value of where he's going, yeah. I agree. If you're going to gamble on somebody there, you absolutely gamble on somebody like John Ross with that high of upside. But for me, I was just so worried about his, what he's been his entire NFL career so far, just injured. And you're talking about a guy that hurt himself running the 40-yard dash with that kind of frame and ability. I love his speed, but for me... in that offense with Andy Dalton, Tyler Boyd took a big step up last year. They draft Drew Sample in the second round. They have Tyler Eifert coming back. You still have A.J. Green, Gio Bernard, and Joe Mixon. I just don't see where that fantasy production is coming from. He's got to leave the Bengals to be viable. I do agree with Tags on where he's going. It's good value because, again, yeah, I'd rather gamble on somebody like that has high upside over a guy like Adam Humphries or guys that, like you said, won't even be on your roster in 2 years. So, for where he's going, yeah. Am I a believer? Absolutely not.
All right. Guys, that's all for today's show. Rich, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on. Love Fantasy Pros. Love what you guys do.
Thanks.
And appreciate talking some Dynasty aspects with you guys.
All right, and remember, Rich is on Twitter at DynastyRich. Tags and I are at Mike Tagliere NFL and at Bobby Fantasy Pro. Thanks to the sponsor of today's show, PristineAuction.com, and sign up for the JuJu Smith-Schuster signed helmet giveaway at FantasyPros.com/contest. Takes about 30 seconds to enter. For Mike Tagliere and Rich Dotson, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve slow.